The Society of the Snow true story is just as harrowing as the tale told in the Netflix movie. Directed by J.A. Bayona, The Impossible Society of the Snow tells the story of a plane carrying the Uruguay rugby team to Chile for a match in 1972, only to slam into a mountain in the Andes and crash, the plane breaking into pieces. In a miracle, some of the passengers survived, but they were stranded with no one knowing where they were, and they ended up relying on desperate means for survival. If this all sounds familiar, it is because there was already a movie released about the incident with the theatrical release Alive in 1993. However, Alive received mostly average reviews as it created more of an action survival film. Bayona preferred to make something a little more loyal to the true story and show how the faith and determination helped these survivors make it through the perilous conditions and come out of it alive. Society of the Snow earned an Oscar nomination for Best International Feature Film and remains a traumatizing account of a true-life tragedy. What caused the real plane crash? The pilots misjudged their location. On October 12, 1972, Uruguayan Air Force Flight 571 took off from Montevideo, Uruguay, with 45 people on board. There were 40 passengers and 5 crew members, and it was chartered to take the Old Christians Club amateur rugby team to Chile for an exhibition match. However, the weather was bad, and the plane had to stop in Argentina to stay overnight. The next day, it took off again and charted a course that would fly through the Andes. That is when tragedy struck. The pilots misjudged their location, and after giving the wrong location information, they received clearance from air traffic control to descend. Sadly, since they misjudged where they were, they came out of the clouds and saw the mountains ahead of them. They couldn't pull the plane up in time and struck a mountain, losing its tail and both wings. The front of the plane slid down the mountain and landed in a valley about 11,500 feet above sea level. What happened to the survivors after the crash? They had to resort to cannibalism of the dead passengers. Jose looking frozen and terrified in Society of the Snow. After the plane crash, there were 16 members and supporters of the Uruguayan rugby team who survived the 72 days following the incident. While in the harsh conditions of the Andes, the survivors had to survive freezing temperatures, extreme weather events, and threats of starvation while trapped on a remote glacier high in the mountains. Roberto Canessa said in an interview that he figured they were all going to die in the mountains after the crash. Via time, 12 people died when the plane crashed. That left 33 survivors injured and fighting for survival. 5 more died the first night, and 1 more died a week later. This left 27 people still alive. They created shelter out of the plane's wreckage to survive the harsh winds and weather. They rationed what food and wine they could find in the plane, but that all ran out after 1 week. They saw planes flying by, looking for them, but their plane was also white and was almost invisible in the snow. Nando Paradu, one of the survivors, said that after food ran out and everyone realized they could die from starvation, they made a deal with each other, via The Guardian. We shook our hands, and we say, if I die, please use my body. So at least you can get out of here. And tell my family how much I love them. That led to the survivors doing the seemingly unthinkable and eating the flesh of the dead passengers. On the 17th day, back-to-back avalanches hit the plane and buried the fuselage. 8 of the survivors died immediately. The 19 survivors dug their way out, and after 3 more people died in the next month, there were only 16 people remaining alive. How were the Society of the Snow survivors saved? 2 of the survivors hiked the mountains to find help. Daniel Fernandez rummaging through the wrecked plane in Society of the Snow. The movie Alive showed a lot more about how 2 people seemingly set out to find help and get everyone rescued. Society of the Snow was not as interested in that journey to find help as it was in showing how the group banded together to survive until the rescue team finally arrived. What happened was that Nando Paradu, Roberto Canessa, and Antonio Vizintin believed they could scale the mountains and land in civilization. However, they weren't aware of how lost the pilot had gotten them. I said, "Come on, Roberto, I cannot do it alone. Let's go." Paradu recalled, via The Guardian. "If we go back, what for? I'm going to die looking into your eyes, and who dies first?" The 2 agreed while Vizintin made a sled and went back to the fuselage. Canessa and Paradu hiked for 10 days and found a campsite. They found a man named Sergio Catalan and gave him a note. Via ABC, Catalan traveled for 10 hours and alerted the Chilean army. Soon, the military arrived and saved Paradu and Canessa. Then, a rescue team flew in and saved the other survivors. They spent 72 days in the wilderness. At the hospital, medical personnel treated them for altitude sickness, dehydration, frostbite, broken bones, malnutrition, and scurvy. Where are the survivors now? Many survivors wrote books on their experience. Close-up of Alfredo Delgado wearing sunglasses in Society of the Snow. Roberto Canessa, who was 19 when the plane crashed, said he feels that J.A. Bayona was the perfect person to adapt their story to film. This is more than a movie. This is an experience we had to share with humanity to show people who are having their own mountain crashes how to be resourceful and how not to give up, Canessa said, via Time. Canessa, who was the main focus of the previous movie Alive, now works as a pediatric cardiologist and a motivational speaker in Uruguay. Nando Paradu, the second man who helped Hike to find a rescue, went on to become a Uruguayan businessman, producer, motivational speaker, author, and television presenter. Paradu co-wrote the 2006 book Miracle in the Andes, 72 Days on the Mountain and My Long Trek Home, with Vince Rawes, which tells his story from his memories of the event 34 years later. Canessa, Eduardo Strauch, and Carlos Poyes Rodriguez also wrote books about the experience. The story of the survivors was not only told in Alive and Society of the Snow, but also in a series of documentaries including Alive, 20 years later, 1993, Stranded, I've Come from a Plane That Crashed on the Mountains, 2007, and I Am Alive, Surviving the Andes Plane Crash, 2010. How was Society of the Snow different from Alive? Society of the Snow was more accurate to the real story. Ethan Hawke in distress leaning over a man curled up in the snow in Alive. Many years before J.A. Bayona released Society of the Snow, there was a big Hollywood retelling of the incident. Alive came out in theaters in 1993, directed by Frank Marshall. However, the two movies had one huge, important difference. Alice cast Ethan Hawke and Josh Hamilton in the lead roles of two of the survivors, Nando and Roberto. Meanwhile, Society of the Snow had an entirely Spanish-speaking cast to bring authenticity to the characters from the true-life story.